For episode 36, in some cases, wishes do come true, but you have to be careful what you wish for. But in the Thunderkittens' case, they're about to learn a harsh lesson. So the story begins with them exploring, just as any person would do. But then, suddenly, the Thunderkins just heard a noise that's coming from nearby. So they figured, why not investigate to find out where the noise was coming from? And so that's what they did. So long story short, now that Wildcat had just told his sister that the noise is from a harp itself. So by the time they went to the woods, the music just got louder and louder. And as they investigated further, that's when, before they knew it, that's when they fell into the hole. By the time they woke up, they now realized where they were. So back with the Thunderkins who fell in the hole, well, good news, they're fine. But now they had no idea where they are. But then Cat just told his sister that there's something glowing up ahead. So they had to find out where that glowing's coming from. And so they did. So back with the Thunderkittens, they decided to investigate. So as they investigated further and further, until they come upon a harp, something they have never recognized before just till that very minute. They were in awe. So when Wily Kid told her brother, "Come give me a hand," so he did, and they both pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled, and finally they got the harp out. But wait, that's not all. Because the Thunderkins has set free the harp, they're about to be a witness of something else, a genie that lives inside of it. Oh, by the way, his name is Char-nin, but we'll get back to him later. So meanwhile, at the Black Pyramid, here in the tomb chamber, you see Mumm-ra waking up by the sound of what was going on in his sarcophagus. So he went to his cauldron to investigate. So that's what he did. But before he did that, he says, "I wonder what those Thundercats are up to." And before you know it, what he saw was unbelievable. The Thunderkittens, and with Char-nin. Still, the Thunderkittens were in awe because they have never seen a genie inside of the harp before up until that very minute. So after Char-nin had introduced himself, so what he did is that he made the flowers appear in his turban after he took it off, of course. The Thunderkins were amazed. So what why the kid wanted to know, "Why are you calling us your masters?" she asked. Well, Chardin is more than happy to answer that. He said that for 1,000 years he's been trapped in a harp, but now, thanks to them, the Thunderkins that is, he's free at last. So Chardin also says it's now thanks to the Thunderkins he's been set free, and so now they're the masters, and he can grant their wishes at any time they wish. So that's it. So after Chardin returns to the harp, that's when his wily cat's turn to ask a question. "Can you get us out of here?" "Well, play the harp," Chardin says, "and you'll see what happens." And so that's what Wily Cat did, and then miraculously everybody got out. So, good news, the Thunderkins made it out thanks to Chardin. So after Wily Cat said thank you, and then Wily Cat made a suggestion to her brother, says, "Wow, wait, will we tell Lionel about this?" So Chardin says, "Whenever you want to make a wish, just play the harp." Then it's Wally Cat's turn to make Wally Kid a suggestion. "Why don't we surprise Lionel instead?" he suggested. "Even better," Wily Cat says, "we'll give the heart to Lionel, only we had to keep it a secret," he said. And so that's what the Thunderkins did. They decided to take the heart to Cat's lair. But what they didn't know is that someone is watching them in a cauldron at the tomb chamber, and we know who that someone is. None other than Mumm-ra himself. So meanwhile there, after he saw what had happened, he pleaded himself a case to say, "So, the Thunderkins wanted to surprise Lionel, huh? Well, that's not a bad idea, but in Lionel's case, according to Mumm-ra, he's going to get the surprise of his life, the one he'll never forget," he said. So, Mumm-ra decided to have Char-nin meet him, but the first thing he did was he does what any bad guy would do, transform himself into his monstrous form, with his ancient spirits of evil, of course. The next thing he did is that he flew himself out of the pyramid. So, you're probably wondering what was Mumm-ra's plan? I'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, the first thing Mumm-ra did is that he arrived outside of Cat's lair, trying to think of the disguise that will fool the Thundercats. But the problem is, what is it? Well, that problem's been solved because according to Mumm-ra, he came up with the best disguise, one of the Thundercats' friends, the Balkan. So that's what he did. So meanwhile in Cat's lair, the Thunderkins just heard the alarm going off at the door. Then he saw that there's a Balkan on the screen that's headed his way. Just let him in, Wily Kid said, and so that's what he did. So, before the Balkan was let in, he says, "Pardon me, Thunderkins, but could you spare a traveler a room for the night?" he asked. So, after Wily Kid said, "Of course," she lets him in. So, her brother suggested to go get Snarf right away, so he heads off. But what he didn't know is back with Wily Kid, she was hypnotized. And of course, what her sister didn't know also is that that Balkan was a fake. So after Wily Kid was hypnotized, that's when her brother came back to tell the Balkan the good news. But unfortunately, he too was hypnotized, just like what his sister did. So the Balkan, who unfortunately the Thunderkins didn't know that was Mumm-ra in disguise, he told them to show him where the magic harp was, and so they did. So back with the Thunderkins, along with the Balkan, who, unaware to them that's really Mumm-ra in disguise, they went upstairs to the Thunderkittens' room. So meanwhile, in the Thunderkittens' room, the kittens did what he said to do, showed them the magic harp that they had found earlier. So what the disguised Balkan did next is that he played the harp, and lo and behold, there's Char-nin now. Now remember, that's the assassin genie that the Thunderkittens had met. So now Mumm-ra, disguised as the Balkan, had met him too. At first, Char-nin thought that the Thunderkins had summoned him, but then by surprise, Mumm-ra just let slip to Char-nin that he's the one that summoned him now. So he is in fact Char-nin's new master. So after Mumm-ra had pleaded a case to Char-nin that he can set him free and etc., so Char-nin was asking, "Who are you?" Well, Mumm-ra was more than happy to introduce himself to Char-nin, so that's what he did. So Mumm-ra, disguised as the Balkan, says to Char-nin, "I have a favor for you. Get rid of those Thundercats for me, and I'll set you free," he said. So Char-nin told Mumm-ra that he'll be glad to do this favor for him. So after Mumm-ra, who was the pumpkin in disguise, and Char-nin just heard Snarf from nearby, that's when the last thing he told Char-nin is this, "I'll set you free once your job is finished." And so after that, Char-nin went back into the harp. So what the Balkan, who's disguised as Mumm-ra, did next is put the harp back under the bed. He told the Thunderkins, "When you awaken, you don't remember a thing, or how it happened," he said. Then after that, Mumm-ra disappears back to his pyramid. So by the time that the Thunderkin snapped out of the trance, that's when Snarf arrived. He says, "Hey, where's the Balkan friend at?" That's because what Snarf didn't even realize that the Balkan was just there moments ago was really Mumm-ra in disguise, and now he just left. So the Thunderkittens, Wily Kid and Wily Cat, Wily Kit went first to speak in her case to say, "That's just weird. He was just there moments ago." So Snarf asked her a question. "Is this your idea of the joke?" Then Wily Kit's brother said no. So Wily Kit went next to speak in her case to say, "He was here moments ago, but then he just left." "Well, it's not like I have anything to do with you two seeing things around here," Snarf said, and so he left the Thunder Kitten's room. So meanwhile, in Lionel's room, Lionel was just sitting in bed, and so after he puts his claw shield and the sword on his side, that's when he saw the Thunderkins come in with something wrapped in a sheet. So Lionel asked the Thunderkins a question. "So what kind of adventure are you up to this time?" he said. So Wily Kid told Lionel that first of all, this is a present for him. "Did you say a present?" Lionel said. So the Thunderkins were more than happy to show Lionel the harp, the same harp that they found earlier that morning. So Wily Kid says all you have to do is strum the harp, Char-nin will appear and grant you any wish you want. However, Lionel just laughs at it and then dismissed it and then asked, "Is this another one of your tricks?" And Wily Kid said no. "It's really magic," she said. "Just try it out," Wily Kid said. "You'll see." And so that's what Lionel did. And by surprise, it happened just like what the Thunderkittens said. Lionel couldn't believe it. His face to face with Char-nin himself. The genie that lives in the harp, of course. So Char-nin asked, "What is your wish?" Still Lionel couldn't believe it. So Wily Cat says, "Go ahead, make your wish, play the harp." So Lionel did, and before the Thunderkind's eyes, Lionel disappeared. They were in shock. They just couldn't believe it. However, back at the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber, what the Thunderkins were unaware of is that watching them was Mumm-ra, who asked the question, "Are you surprised, Thunderkittens?" Oh, about Mumm-ra's plan that I was about to tell you about. What the Thunderkins should have realized is that Mumm-ra earlier was using Char-nin to get rid of everyone. And I do mean all of the Thundercats. And why is that? Because, as anyone will tell you, that it was all part of the plan. So back at Cat's Lair and with the Thunderkittens, now that Lionel is missing, now they're wondering what's going on. So Wily Cat was asking his sister what we're going to do about it. Perhaps Char-nin will tell us where Lionel is, she suggested. So Wily Cat went ahead and played the harp, so that's what she did. And then Char-nin appeared just as he did twice before. He says, "What is your wish?" So Wily Cat, who's Wily Kit's brother, was asking, "What have you done with Lionel?" "Oh, don't worry about him," Char-nin says. "I fulfilled his wish," he said. "I'm pretty sure that he'll be back very soon," Char-nin said. Then Wily Cat sensed that something was off and said that she's getting worried. So her brother, Wily Cat, told Char-nin to take them to Lionel. "I'd be glad to," Char-nin said, and so that's what he did. So meanwhile, back at the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber, Mumm-ra just watched it happen in his cauldron. He seems very impressed with Char-nin doing the job right, and for once, he didn't mess up. So back with the Thunderkins and Char-nin, so Char-nin just told the Thunderkins where they are. "What you are witnessing is the center of the Earth, the Earth's core, of course," Char-nin said. Well, the Thundercats had never been to the center of the Earth before, but it was their first time. So why the kid wanted to know from Char-nin, why would Lionel want to come here? Why don't you just ask him for yourself? Char-nin asked. "So where is he?" Wily Cat asked. "Follow me, and you'll see," Char-nin said. And so the Thunderkins agreed to follow Char-nin to where Lionel went. So back with the Thunderkittens, well, good news, they found Lionel. But now here comes the bad news. He's all tied up. And when they found out about it, they were in shock. So Wily Cat had demanded Shannon to let him go, but Shannon refused. "What's the big deal?" Wily Kid asked. "You said you will obey us. You said you'll grant our wishes." "Oh?" Shannon said. "Well, I'm your master now, so you'll have to obey me," he said. So then it's Lionel's turn to play his case. He said, "When I get out of here, you'll be singing a different tune," he said. So the Thunderkins went in front of Lionel, and then one of the kids says, "Don't worry, we'll get you out of here." "Not so fast," Thunderkins, Shannon says. So what he did is what any genie would do. He uses his power, so that's what he did. Then what happened next was unbelievable. The Thunderkins ropes comes out of nowhere and ties them up, just like what he did with Lionel, Char-nin that is. So, why did Kid pleaded her case to say, "I thought you were our friend. Why are you doing this?" she asked. And then before you know it, Char-nin just let slip to the Thundercats to say, "Once the Thundercats have been captured, I'll be free," as a promise to Mumm-ra. They should have known that at that moment it was all part of Mumm-ra's plan from the beginning. So back with Lionel after what Char-nin had told the Thunderkittens, he should have realized right then that Mumm-ra is the one that planned it all. And so he pleaded his case to say, I should have known he was behind all of this, he said. But then, Lionel has a plan. So he tells Wily Cat, listen, if you can distract him long enough, then maybe I can get my sword. So then when Char-nin turns around, he then asks the question, what are you all whispering about? He said. Well, Wily Cat decided to go along with the plan of Lionel's, of course. So then he just told Char-nin, my sister and I don't think highly of your magic. So you doubted me? Char-nin asked. So Wily Kid has her turn to plead a case by asking a question. If you're so powerful, why don't you prove it? Oh, so what kind of proof do you need? Char-nin asked. Well, since you're not going to free us anyway, Wyneke said, how about you bringing me a sleeper? She suggested. In that case, I'll be more than happy to oblige, Char-nin said. I'll be right back. And so he disappeared. So back with Lionel after Char-nin had left, he tried desperately to reach the sword, but Wily Cat's getting worried. He says, hurry up! Char-nin may be back at any time, he said. And so Lionel reached further and further until finally he grabbed his sword. That's the good news. So by the time that Char-nin comes back, he has some good news for Wily Kid. He said, you asked for a snake bird, here you are. And so he shows it to her. She was in awe. So back with Lionel, he then told Char-nin, and I have something for you, but even better. So guess what Lionel did? He did what any good guy would do, as he always does, summoning a Thundercat signal from his sword. So that's what he did. Meanwhile, in the Castler's control room, the two Thundercats that saw the signal first were Panthro and Snarf. Next, in the jungle, the next two Thundercats to see it were Chitara and Tigra. So back with Panther and Snarf now in the Thunder Tank that just left the lair moments ago, the tank decided to pick up Chitara and Tigra on the way to where the signal was coming from. So after they've arrived, Tigra, Panther, Snarf, and Chitara were looking around to find out where's the signal. Well, Snarf knows where it is, so he went over to the holder where the signal came from. He says, over here, quick! And so the rest of the Thundercats joined up with Snarf. So thanks to Snarf, now that Panthro, Chitara, and Tiger knew where Lino is, everybody went back into the tank, so they now know that there is no time to lose. So back with Lionel speaking, which I forgot to mention that he broke free thanks to the Sword of Omens that he grabbed earlier while Char-nin left. Anyway, back to the battle between himself and Char-nin, but things are not looking good for Lionel. So Char-nin pleaded a case to say that he was no match for him and etc. So long story short, the battle between Char-nin and Lionel just went on and on and on and on and on. But things don't look so good for Lionel. Things look pretty bad. Back with the Thunder Tank, it was still on its way. So after the Thunderkittens have heard the sound of the Thunder Tank that's coming nearby, that's when White Cat pleaded his case with Char-nin to say that his time was up and etc. And that's when, before you know it, Char-nin just saw a Thunder Tank that had just arrived, and not a moment too soon. I forgot to mention that Char-nin had pleaded a case to ask a question if he's not prepared to welcome them. So when the Thunder Tank arrived, back with that, that's what Char-nin did. He greeted them a big welcome, the Thundercats that is, Chitara, Panthro, Snarf, and Tigra. So what Char-nin did is that he introduced himself at that the Thundercats are their master and etc. But Chitara pleads her case to say that Lino is their master. Is that a fact? Char-nin asked. So, Char-nin uses the power from his ring to zap Lionel, who at the time was trying to get his sword out, but no such luck. So back with Chitara, Panthro, and Tiger after what they saw what had happened, so Panthro stepped forward, and he was the first to go one-on-one with Char-nin. But, unfortunately, things didn't look so good for Panthro. So, there's two more left. So, Chitara goes next to face Char-nin herself. I forgot to mention that Snarf was with them too. So things didn't look so good for Chitara either, so Char-nin, just like what he did to Panthro, traps her in the cage. And when Snarf tries to get away, he traps him in the cage just like what he did to Chitara, so now there's two of them. So now it's just Tigra left. So anyway, back with Tigra, he was the last to face off with Char-nin, so he goes one-on-one with him. But unfortunately for Tigra, he too was outmatched by him. Unfortunately, things look pretty grim for the Thundercats since they've now been captured thanks to Char-nin. But then Mumm-ra appears, so when Char-nin looked over his shoulder, one of the first things Mumm-ra did was to congratulate him on a job well done. But then Char-nin asked a question after he pleaded his case to say, I did my job. What about your promise? He asked. But then by surprise, Mumm-ra just frankly denies it. He says, What promise? I don't remember making it. Char-nin says, But you promised to set me free. You said if I captured the Thundercats, and I did, you said you set me free. Then Char-nin says, Now you made a deal with me. If I captured the Thundercats, which I did, you said you set me free, remember? But then Mumm-ra asked a question. Do you really think I would share the earth with you? So you know what this means. Char-nin had been betrayed. He's been deceived. You know the saying of never do a favor for a favor? Well, in Char-nin's case, he should have known better than to make a deal, especially with the deceiver like Mumm-ra. So that kind of act of deception just made Char-nin upset. So what Mumm-ra and Char-nin did next, they decided to put their powers to the test. So it's a battle of magic. And it went on and on and on and on and on. So back with the Thundercats, now all tied up thanks to Char-nin. But because Char-nin is weakened by Mumm-ra's power, they're beginning to become free from their own prison. So the first to be free was Panthro, next are the Thunderkittens, next is Tigra, then it's Lino, then the last ones were Chitara and Snarf. So yes, the Thundercats are free thanks to Char-nin's power that are weakened, but now here comes a problem. The cavern has fallen apart. With no time to lose, Panthro says, Quick, everybody in the tank, and so everybody did. When Mumm-ra looked over his shoulder, he was screaming at Char-nin to say, The Thundercats are getting away, he said. But Char-nin refuses to listen to Mumm-ra and decided to finish him off, or have Mumm-ra finish Char-nin off, whichever the case. Well, back with the Thundercats in the Thunder Tank, well, good news, they managed to escape. So, after their escape, that's when Lionel pleaded his case to say, We're all to blame for all of this. If we had just left things alone and not messed with things we don't understand, then we wouldn't be in this mess. On top of that, Lionel thanked Panther for getting them out of there and made their escape. Well, it's Snarf's turn to plead his case to say, Let's get out of here. I've had enough of this place. Let's go home, he said. Good idea. And so everybody is heading to Cat's Lair in the Thunder Tank. So on the way to Cat's Lair, that's when Panther has his turn to plead a case to Lionel to say, At least one good thing came out of it. What's that? Lionel asked. Well, at least we got rid of Mumm-ra. But not so fast, because Panther will soon realize that he'll be proven wrong because we'll never get the confirmation of who won the magic duel. Was it Mumm-ra or Char-nin? So even though I can't really say for sure, but one thing is clear, the Thundercats will rest assured we'll be seeing Mumm-ra again sooner than they thought. So that ends episode 36.